Hey yo, Chris here, and thanks for tuning into the Delta. And we are gearing up for Monza this weekend. Super excited. Does anyone know if this one is considered the Italian Grand Prix or is Emilia-Romagna the Italian Grand Prix? There's two races in Italy. Are they both Italian Grand Prix? Let me know in the comments if you know that. But yes, that is what we're gearing up for. We are heading to Autodromo Nazionale Monza.
Autodromo Nazionale Monza.
I've said that 100% correctly, I'm sure, and I didn't offend a single Italian. I'm super excited for this track. It's super fast, super unique in the sense that there's not many turns and not many passing opportunities on a turn or anything like that. We might end up getting a boring race because we might get in a DRS train, but it's an iconic track. Get excited because this is an iconic track, and much like your tracks like Monaco and Silverstone and stuff like that, there's just some that just are special because they are a traditional old school style racing track. This is one of them. Quick note, sorry for not getting a review video out of the Dutch Grand Prix. Construction season is full swing. Our construction season pretty much ends around Thanksgiving, so a lot of contractors try to button things up between end of August to the end of September, so it leaves a little bit of a buffer zone if, you know, shit hits the fan. So that's just what I've been doing. I've just been working, taking care of notes, paperwork up to my eyeballs, doing concrete pours, getting ready for roadway work, just all kinds of stuff. And unfortunately, the Dutch Grand Prix review just didn't happen, and there was just no point to put one out 2-3 days late when we got a Monza race coming up. So, briefly, Lando Norris looked great, winning by 20 seconds. Verstappen and Red Bull looked normal and human. Nothing. They're in a position now where they might not win the constructors, and I mean, mathematically speaking, there is a way for Lando Norris to beat Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship too. So Red Bull has some work to do, and maybe it'll happen here in Monza. Ferrari 100% surprised me. Couldn't believe how well they did there, because Friday and Saturday looked miserable, and I was expecting to, you know, throw myself off a balcony come Sunday. Outside of that, though, they did great. So Sunday came, and Carlos Sainz jumped up a ton of spots and earned some really, really good points for the team. Charles Leclerc really, really impressed me and got some fan points on my side. Not that I was never a fan of Charles. It's just he was never my favorite driver. He's messed up and bent it into the wall so many times. It's one of those things where I'm like, well, yeah, he's a Ferrari driver, so I'm rooting for him. But his performance there in Zandvoort, defending Piastri that entire time on those old hards, showcased how good of a driver he really is. Yes, strategy came into play, and that's hard to believe that a Ferrari strategy was good. But yeah, combination of strategy and Charles Leclerc being a good driver impressed me. But that is enough about Zandvoort. That is old news. We move on in Formula One. On to the next race. There's so much stuff to talk about. Before we get started, like and subscribe to the channel. Helps me out a lot. Lets me know that you like what I'm putting out. And don't be afraid to comment if you want to see something or have any other ideas. As you can see here, we're also in the Hamilton. Had a great race there with Lewis Hamilton as he climbed, 6 spots in at Zandvoort himself. Pretty good performance. We had a lot of fun. Didn't get the win. Mercedes had a lot of work to do. But in the Hamilton, he is confident. Anyway, back to Monza. To the Autodromo Nazionale Monza.
Autodromo Nazionale Monza.
100% accurately pronounced. The specs for this circuit are, it's 5.793 kilometers, total laps of 53, and a total distance of 306.72 kilometers. Has 2 DRS zones and 11 turns. What makes this track special is it's super, super fast. The long straights, like I said, you risk getting into a DRS train in the current format of Formula One. So we might not have the world's most exciting race, but you will get to see these cars go their fastest. So that is what is super exciting. Speed is cool in my opinion. I always like watching any race. I like watching the speed. Any sport really. Like I love watching football games where the guy runs the fastest down the field, or track and field, the 100-yard dash or the 400-meter, whatever you got to do, any racing is really cool. And when you get to see the top speeds of the performers, it's just unbelievably and awe-inspiring, and that's what Monza offers with its 2 long straights. However, it does have 3 tough chicanes, which offers another unique strategy. You're going to have to go from super fast to super technical, back to super fast, and that's, I think, in my opinion, where the car setup is going to matter. It's a very, very specific setup, because what do you want to focus on? Do you want to focus on that like all-out straight line speed, or do you think you can save time on the chicanes or on the few other turns that are on the track? It's tough, and I feel like there's only just a select few cars that are going to have the correct setup, and either you can handle it or you can't. And I think also the drivers have to be daring. Who's going to be willing to break the latest without bending it into the wall or cutting the chicane? So lots of strategies going to be involved in this particular race. I think that's where you're going to get your passing done. Who's going to do the undercut? Is there going to be an overcut opportunity? Who's going to take care of their tires? And then which car is going to be the most well suited for such a track? It's one of the things that we might need to worry about is if McLaren wins this race by a country mile, then we're screwed, because you have Zandvoort, which was twisty and turny and hilly, and now you have Monza, which is flat and straight out. And if McLaren can win by 20 seconds in both of these types of circuits, then they are probably just going to win out on every single race for the rest of the season, because that means that car is just set up and suited for Formula One racing at its best. So, before we get into our predictions like we always do, I like to go over the upgrades. It is Tuesday, so up to the information that I could find, the only car that's getting upgrades is Ferrari. Leclerc confirmed that there will be upgrades made to the SF24 for Monza. I didn't see any specifics, but if they were able to make chicken salad out of chicken shit there at the Dutch Grand Prix, then I feel a little optimistic about Monza. Again, I'm getting delusional. I'm super, super excited for Ferrari at Monza this weekend. Going on to the weather, though, it is going to be hot. Low 90s, mid 90s, upper 80s. Just expect the heat to be there. No rain is expected at any time this weekend, so you're going to have dry, standard racing conditions. My only caveat is when the temperatures get this high, my concern is the engine reliability, or are you going to lose performance because you don't want to, overheat your engine. So we'll see what the weather does for these drivers. I mean, obviously they have to suffer too. Make sure you got some cold water in their car somewhere, because they're going to need it. So that's the weather, that's the upgrades, that is the track layout. Let's get into the predictions, and we'll always start off with the biggest loser. And I got Haas. They didn't impress me at the Dutch Grand Prix. I feel like they had an opportunity to climb the ranks in the power rankings, and they didn't do that because they were basically on par or worse with RB, in my opinion. With that being said, they are also in a legal battle with some Russian company. Long story short, they owe some company money for some sponsorship way back in the day. They haven't paid it, something like $9 million bucks. So their equipment is still sitting in Zandvoort, at least up to my knowledge now. Maybe they got this thing taken care of today, and now they're getting their stuff down there. So we don't even know if Haas will be there at the race come Friday. Hopefully they can get it all figured out and be there. But yeah, I'm just not impressed with Haas as of late. They had that brief moment in the season where they were really quick and getting some good finishes. P6 there for Nico Hülkenberg 2 times in a row. And then after that, they just kind of sputtered into nothingness. They're in a battle with RB. They have every incentive to put out their best. So we'll see what happens with their equipment still up in Zandvoort and not that great of performances the last few races. I just don't see a great showing in Monza for Haas this weekend. But we'll move on to the exceptional performance. And I have Mercedes. They didn't do great there in Zandvoort. I don't think they necessarily did horrible either. I mean, you got to watch Lewis Hamilton full send for an entire race, and he gained some spots. We could argue what the strategy was for George Russell. Would he have finished the race better if he didn't go on that second pit stop or not? It's hard to say. I think Mercedes' foible at Zandvoort was more of a one-off, that the car just wasn't well suited for that particular track. And I think in Monza, they will do a little bit better. Then we can move on to the biggest disappointment, and I have Aston Martin. I don't necessarily think they're the worst team or anything like that, and they really haven't even done anything great to even warrant, well, what's going to be disappointing? They haven't been great. To be disappointing means you'd have to be good at first, right? I think they're going to be worse than average. There have been talks throughout the season that their car hasn't been great on straights. Lance Stroll says it over the radio pretty regularly. Fernando Alonso has been pretty unhappy with the car for many, many races now. So I don't think the car suits the track. I think they struggle on every racetrack they go to, and now we're heading to Monza, where I don't think the car is going to do well at all. I'm thinking more like a P13 or worse come the end of race on Sunday. Now we'll move on to the pick called the Dark Horse, formerly known as the Shocker pick. I didn't really like the Shocker pick anymore. I was just always, reaching for the stars on it, trying to base it on information that I kind of had, but it also had to be a stretch, and I didn't really know, and I was coming up with things like double DNFs, and I didn't really like it. So I think I'm going to change it to a Dark Horse pick, and that's just going to be a driver who I think has a potential to not just make podium, but even potentially win. And for this race, I got George Russell. It's a dark horse. I don't think anyone expects George Russell to win or even reach podium there in Monza. But I do see a path where it does. What if Mercedes' car is suited for a track like Monza? We saw them not do well in a track like Zandvoort, and then you saw them do well on a track like Spa. I would say Monza is closer to Spa than it is to Zandvoort. Now, obviously, Spa is like 7 kilometers long. Lots of things can happen, and obviously Russell got disqualified. But I can see a situation where George Russell isn't too light, and Lewis Hamilton is feeling himself, and Mercedes actually ends up having a great weekend where George Russell finds himself in P3 or better, and that's why he is the dark horse for this weekend's race. Now we'll move on to pole position, and I have Lando Norris. I got Lando just based off of recent events. It's really tough to find another person that could potentially get pole when it looks like everyone else is down here and you got Lando Norris up here. He's just performing very well in a car that is supersonic seemingly compared to everyone else. Now, I do have some high expectations for Ferrari. Maybe Charles Leclerc can surprise us and get pole position. But the data shows that McLaren is the fastest car by a country mile, outperforming everybody, and Lando Norris is the one behind the wheel. So, Lando Norris, pole position. Now we'll go on to the podium predictions. And this is where you're going to see my Ferrari fandom and delusion come through, because at P3, I got Carlos Sainz. Ferrari looked way better on race day at the Dutch Grand Prix than they did during practice and qualifying. And with the upgrade information that we got from Charles Leclerc and Fred Vasseur, I have a feeling that they are going to expand upon their success there from the race. I think that maybe their car is a little bit better suited for this particular track, and at bare minimum, they will be competitive with the front of the field. I don't think they will get caught in a situation where they'll be P6, P7, and not be able to advance. I think Carlos Sainz will qualify in top 5, and he'll find his way into the top 3 somehow, some way, and we'll hopefully see a battle up front between P4 and P3 and P2. And then that will move me on to P2, and then I got Lando Norris for P2. So, despite Lando Norris having a great car and a great performance there in Zandvoort, I am not 100% confident that, this is going to be the norm. If it is the norm, we already know what's going to happen. If Lando Norris takes the lead in this race and wins by 20 seconds, wrap this season up, McLaren's going to win every single race for the rest of the season, barring DNFs or something like that. So my hope is that McLaren, comes back down to earth after a great performance there in Zandvoort, and he's going to have to battle, the likes of Carlos Sainz and Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc, even his teammate, Oscar Piastri, sprinkle the Mercedes in with the mix. I don't think this particular race will just come easy. I'm not saying he can't win the race. He's more than capable. I just think that he's going to have to fight for the win way more than he did have to at Zandvoort. If he screws up the start in Monza, I don't think he's getting it back. That type of thing. We'll find out come Sunday. But yeah, right now I got Lando Norris at P2. And then that leaves the winner. And I have the great Charles Leclerc. It is time. It is time for Charles Leclerc to take this Ferrari and for the Tifosi to just go crazy. I'm telling you what, if Charles Leclerc finds a way to win this race, people in Monza will be hearing me cheering for him all the way here in Pennsylvania. I want this so bad. Do I have any real data and that analysis to give you? No, I don't. But I have heart. I believe in Charles Leclerc and Ferrari. I think the Red Bulls are in turmoil. They don't have it all figured out. I think they don't have a good race. I think McLaren comes back down to earth, and I think the Mercedes just won't have it either. I think Charles Leclerc has what it takes, and Ferrari will upgrade that car to where it needs to be, where we can see a Charles Leclerc victory in Monza. Let's go, Ferrari. This is your moment. This is your time. Don't embarrass me, please. I really, really want this. I think if Ferrari is going to win this race, we're going to have a great race. If it's going to be Max Verstappen winning or Lando Norris winning, we might have a very boring race on our hands. But if one of the Ferraris takes the lead, we can be talking about battles up front for the majority of the race, because Ferrari isn't miles ahead of everybody else. For Ferrari to win, they're going to have to put in a perfect race and a perfect strategy and perfect driving by the drivers. And that's going to require a lot. I mean, you know Ferrari, right? They're not known for perfection, right? So if Ferrari finds a way to take the lead, that would also have to mean that McLaren and Mercedes and Red Bull are right there with them, battling it out. And if that is the narrative that occurs, we will be in for a very exciting Italian Grand Prix. But yeah, Charles Leclerc for the victory, and that's what I'm sticking with. I might eat my words, and I'm totally okay with it. But until next time, take care, stay safe, and have fun out there. Bye, everybody.